Well, good morning, everybody. Jenny Gallagher with Joyful Heart Healthcare and Keto Nurses. Missed y'all the last week or two, but it's been crazy trying to be here with our kids and trying to help them paint and construct and lay floor and build closets and all the cool stuff, trying to get their house situated. So we've been a little bit busy and I just have not had time to do a live. So we're here. We're going to talk about hormones that regulate hunger and fullness today. So we're going to give everybody a minute to get their notifications, and then we're going to talk hunger and fullness. So hit that share button, share the video on your page so that other people can learn about hunger and fullness. This is, out of everything I ever shared, this one topic can change people's lives. The absolute most. Yes, eliminating grains is beneficial and can change lives. Yes, lowering your A1C or your insulin number can change lives. But learning to really utilize how the body's chemistry works can be completely life-changing forever and ever and ever. Like, if we don't capitalize on the hormones God gave us, then we're abusing our bodies, in my viewpoint. So I'm a huge fan of optimizing the body God gave us and using the hormones that He created. And so that's my basic philosophical belief. If we're not using that, then we're abusing our body and we're not taking care of the body that He gave us. And that's going to cost us in health, in function, in our cognition. It's going to cost us in days we're on the earth. It's going to cost us in our health bill, our medicine bill, our hospital days. Like, it's going to cost us one way or another. So I really, really, really encourage y'all to share this video over and over and over coming weeks, days, and months and years. Like, come back to this, save this link, share it in private messages, share the link in an email to someone that's not maybe on Facebook a lot, but share this video, because learning to understand how chemistry guides our hunger and fullness can change people's perspective about food forever and ever. So hopefully it'll be really helpful for you and for some of your family and friends. So numbers are going up, so we're going to get started. We're going to talk about leptin and ghrelin. There's a lot of discussion and information out there about leptin and ghrelin. Some experts and gurus say you have to have blood levels. There's no point in getting blood levels of either one of these hormones, because if you are insulin resistant, they're going to be completely off the charts. So there's no point. Once you get things under control, if you want to get it tested to see if it's better, if it's improved and back into normal range, that might be a good time to check it. But if you're overweight, if you're insulin resistant, if your A1C is out of control, if you're metabolically dysfunctional, getting a leptin level is pretty useless. It is not going to benefit you one iota. There's no point. What we have to learn to do is learn the signals of the body. Okay, so first off, let's talk about what leptin and ghrelin do for us. Okay, so first off, type in the chat, tell me how you know you're full. When you're eating food, how do you know that you feel full? How do you know? How do you know to stop eating? Like, how come we don't just eat constantly? Which some of us do. Some of us graze. I used to be a grazer. I would literally munch all day. I'd cook breakfast and munch out of the skillet. And then I'd start lunch and I'd munch out of the bowls and the refrigerator. And then I'd start supper and I'd munch out of the pans, boilers, and skillet then. Like, I would literally munch all day. I was a grazer. And many of us have been raised that way because we've been told to eat every couple hours, but that's not healthy. But how do you really know you're full? Sandy says your brain tells you. Anybody else have an idea? How do you know that you're full? How do you know to stop eating? Anybody else have an idea? Sandy, you're right in a way. Your brain does tell you, but how does your brain know to tell you? There's a hormone called leptin that tells you you're full. So as you eat, as you chew, signals, lots of chemistry is happening. It's not as simple as I make it sound. Number one, I break it down into the simplest, easiest to understand analogies and stories so people get it. But it's much more complex than this. But the simple version is, as we chew, leptin begins to be released from usually fat cells and triggers areas of the brain, pleasure centers actually. Some are located in the hypothalamus where hunger originates. And it says, hey, I think I'm full. I don't think I need anything else. So then the hypothalamus communicates with the gut to say, nothing else is going to fit here. So that's when we feel full. When you feel like your stomach is expanding, you feel like you need stretchy pants on at Thanksgiving, when you feel that full feeling, it's because of a lot of chemistry that's going on between hormones, the brain, and the stomach itself. So when I talk about stomach, I'm not talking about your entire belly. I'm talking about the little bitty organ where food lands when you swallow. It's about the size of your fist. Your stomach is only the size of your fist. So number one rule to not overeating is to think about the quantity of food on your plate in relationship to your fist. If your plate is full of food that you could smush into a ball larger than your fist, you're overeating. More than likely. Yep. You're overeating. Okay? So think about when you fix your plate, when you prepare your meal, you take the food off of the stove, out of the pan, out of the skillet, off the grill. If you can smush your food into a pile, imagine just smushing it all into one pile. If that pile is larger than your fist, it's time to cut back quantities. Okay? And the first thing you should cut would be what? What would you recommend cutting first? Anybody got an idea? What would you recommend to somebody just learning to eat healthier? What would be the first thing you would recommend? Hey, you should probably cut back on first. Do we want them cutting back on protein? Do we want them cutting back on healthy fat? What do we want cut back first? Mel's right. Cut back on those carbs and fillers first. Okay? Those are wasted space in your gut because there's almost no nutritional value. If you look on an app like Chronometer, you'll see the line that gives you the nutrient value on the screen. And you can tell there's almost no nutritional value in most of your carbohydrates. The grains are none, but even your carbs have very low nutrient value. So those need to go first, okay? So then you're left with your meats, your veggies, and your healthy fats. Your healthy fats are your butter, avocado oil, olive oil, beef tallow, lard, bacon grease, those kinds of healthy fats. We avoid seed oils like corn oil, canola oil, vegetable oil because they are very inflammatory. They increase cardiac disease risk. They raise inflammation. They are absolutely not healthy. So we don't want to use those fats. So leptin is going to tell you when you're starting to feel full. If you stop eating at the very first sign of fullness, you will leave about half the food on your plate. That's a really good way to start a good, healthy eating plan. You don't have to really change the food you're eating. Just start listening to your body signals, okay? Just pay attention to when you first feel that, oh, I think I'm full. Do you remember? I remember when I was little, mama and teachers, adults in my life used to tell me, chew your food 32 times or whatever it was, 50 times, like chew your food. And I always thought, that's so dumb. Like by the time you chew it, there's nothing left of it. Well, yeah, that's right. Because it's easier for your body to break it down if it's already chewed up really good. Now, there's no real point in counting the number of chews. That's not the point here. The point is, if you chew your food well, you're taking time for the brain, for leptin to communicate to your brain and gut that you are filling up. Okay? So there's reasons we want you to slow down your eating and chew your food. Chewing helps tell leptin to work. Okay? So you don't have to really change the way you're eating. You don't really have to go buy diet food. You don't have to go buy keto food. You don't have to go buy anything different to just start eating a healthy way. Just start listening to body signals. We have hormones that will regulate hunger and fullness if we start listening to them. When you start hearing fullness and you stop eating at that moment, there should be food left on your plate. How many of you belong to the Clean Your Plate Club? Me. I grew up believing that I had to clean my plate or I was not good. I didn't behave. I wasn't minding my mom. Like cleaning your plate was important. Like it was vital to being healthy. Everybody had to clean their plate. You couldn't have dessert if you didn't clean your plate. You couldn't go to the zoo if you didn't clean your plate. You couldn't go to the park if you didn't clean your plate. Like everything we did was a reward for cleaning your plate. That's dumb. Don't make your kids do that. We need to stop that terrible cycle. Cleaning your plate is not a sign of eating healthy. Okay? So don't teach your kids to do that. If they are not hungry, they should not have to eat. Your kids understand leptin and ghrelin better than we do. If they are not hungry, they shouldn't be eating. Okay? So that's how to learn about leptin. Leptin is the fullness hormone. It tells you when you're full. It will not work if you drink your calories. Because what's telling it to work? Chewing. Okay? Chewing is what really tells leptin to be released. So if you aren't chewing your food, your body won't release nearly as much leptin and you're going to overconsume food. Mostly drink, which is mostly carb, which is mostly going to raise your glucose and your insulin. That's not going to be healthy. Okay? So, Patty says, my granddaughter seems to never be hungry and my daughter's always pushing her to eat. Yep. Make sure she sees this video. Like, really. Kids understand leptin and ghrelin. They don't know what the hormones are. They don't understand how this chemistry works. They don't understand. But they understand when they don't feel hungry. Okay? So hunger should drive feeding patterns. If you are not stomach growling hungry, you don't eat. I don't care if you're 2 years old or 102 years old. Stomach growling hunger should guide our feeding patterns. Period. If you are not stomach growling hunger, it is not time to eat. We don't eat because it's 7 a.m. We don't eat at noon because it is lunchtime. We don't eat at 6 p.m. because it's supper time. We don't eat because church it has dinner on the ground today. We don't eat because we show up at a meeting and they are serving donuts. We don't eat because there's food available. We eat because we have stomach growling hunger. There's a gnawing, a growling, a knot in the pit of your gut that says, feed me, I need fuel. That is the only purpose we eat, is for fuel. Fuel. We don't eat because we have an emotional need. I'm an emotional eater. I'm a recovering emotional eater. Let me tell you. Once an emotional eater, always an emotional eater. It's kind of like being an alcoholic or a drug addict. Once you have those problems, you're never over it. You just work past it. And so that's important to understand. I am an emotional eater. If I am not careful, if I get stressed, if I get sad, if I get whatever, it's easy to turn to food. And that's not healthy. So I had to find other outlets for my stress. And so I did. But we all have to do that. You all have to find a different kind of way to manage those stressors. But feeding an emotional, let me say this right. Feeding an emotional feeling is not healthy because that's going to worsen your health. Okay? Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. Ghrelin is only going to be released when glucose drops really low, when your body is needing fuel, when your body needs nutrients, then triggers chemically happen within the body and ghrelin is released and it triggers the stomach to go, right? Okay? And it's a pit, it's a knot, it's a growling in the deep part of your gut that causes that hunger. And if you're not eating in response to that, you're overfeeding your body. Okay? So if you don't know what stomach growling hunger is, maybe we should look for that. A long time ago, I did a church-based, faith-based weight loss class, a devotion class kind of thing. And the first assignment was to find stomach growling hunger. There were many people that worked on that assignment that first week. And when we came back to our weekly meeting, there were several people that it took 3 days to find stomach growling hunger. So they didn't eat anything. They just drank their water. Stomach growling hunger in America doesn't happen very often. We overfeed. There's too much food availability. There's food everywhere you look. There's food all the time in the pantry. It's not like in the Depression where there was nothing in the cabinets and people were hungry all the time. We don't have that today. We don't know what hunger's like as a general rule. Yes, there are neighborhoods and some families that do know what it feels like. But as a general rule, we have food available everywhere. That's not healthy. We need to know what stomach growling hunger feels like and how to respond to that so that the body works properly. When we are eating in response to times or schedules or just because, then we're overfeeding the body. Can you overfeed your car's gas tank? Can you put too much gas in your car? No. So why should we be able to put too much gas, too much fuel in our gas tank? We shouldn't. So really start paying attention to stomach growling hunger for you and start teaching your kids. If it's dinner time and you call everybody to the table and they're picking at their food, ask them, well, if you're not hungry, we'll put the plate in the fridge, wrap it up in foil in a Ziploc bag, stick it in the fridge. And when you get hungry in an hour or two, we'll pull it out and warm it up. We'll save it for you for later. That's the thing to do. If you're not hungry, don't eat. That's what this boils down to. And don't force feed your kids or your family members. if you're not hungry. Now, there are occasional instances where hunger doesn't happen because the gut isn't working properly. If it's backed up, stopped up, constipated, that will cause some terribly poor appetite. So you have to address the bottom end of the gut for the top end to work right. So that's a problem that you may have to work on. There is also a couple of major cautions that I want to mention here. Not everyone can look for stomach growling hunger in a safe way. So stomach growling hunger cannot be found easily if people are on insulin. Good question, Debbie. Or on certain drugs that lower glucose. That's exactly where I was going, y'all. So if you want to find stomach growling hunger and you take insulin or other diabetic medications, you have to get help from a knowledgeable prescriber to help you lower your doses, help you hold the appropriate medicines to be able to do this. It is completely unsafe to look for stomach growling hunger, which means you're fasting, you're holding food for hours, maybe a day or two at a time. You can't take those kinds of medicines in the doses you normally do if you're fasting. You just can't. It's unsafe. Completely 100% unsafe. It is not safe ever to combine low carbing or fasting in the presence of glucose lowering medications. Massive red alert. Massive red alert. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You need the major assistance of a knowledgeable prescriber who understands the medications and how to help you use appropriate doses. Type 1s, even if they're fasting, have to use small amounts of insulin usually because they don't make any insulin. Their liver is still possibly going to release some glucose if they're fasting. Type 2s will do that as well because they're going to store more glucose than even type 1s. But if you're on insulin or any other medicine that directly lowers glucose, you have to be extremely, extremely careful if you're going to go look for stomach growling hunger. Okay? You cannot do that on your own. You can't just not take your medicine. You can't just skip it. Okay? So Patty, metformin does not directly lower glucose, but in the presence of and in addition to other glucose lowering meds, it might. So yes, you still need to ask for help. You still need to ask for help. Okay? So it's extremely dangerous to fast or skip meals if you're on those medicines. Okay? All right. So hunger guides feeding. If you aren't hungry, we don't eat. Okay? That's the bottom line. If you're on glucose lowering meds, you need help to find stomach growling hunger from a knowledgeable medical provider. You absolutely have to have help. It's unsafe to use fasting in any form, even if it's just for a few hours, if you're skipping meals and taking these meds. Your glucose can go plummet very fast. And once those meds are in your system, you can't control them. So you need to be using a glucose monitor, a CGM if possible, and keep a very close eye on your glucose. But you need a knowledgeable prescriber to help you reduce doses appropriately and manage those numbers wisely. Okay? If you're in a state where I don't practice and you want some help, you can go to the website lowcarbusa.org, and there are multiple low-carb prescribers in most of the states. So you can find folks around the nation that will help you with low carbing and some fasting and medicine management. They don't all practice the way I do related to other nutrients, other vitamins, other thyroid stuff, other metabolic dysfunction issues, but they will help you with the fasting, the glucose, and those kinds of things. Okay, lowcarbusa.org. Okay. Other questions? Anybody else got a question about hunger or fullness? One of the things I didn't mention that I will right as we end is one of the main reasons we like to use this intermittent fasting that's driven by hormones. We don't use a scheduled intermittent fasting. I never recommend a scheduled or planned fast whatsoever for anyone. I never tell people to schedule a fast for so many hours or a set schedule. Never, never, never. I only recommend using your body's hormones and your body's natural system to guide hunger and fullness, eating and not. But autophagy is really important. Dr. Jason Fung writes about autophagy in his book, The Obesity Code. If you have not read that book or heard about that book, I highly recommend that you consider looking at it. I don't make a dime off of book recommendations that I tell y'all about. But it's a really good book, and it talks about intermittent fasting. He does talk about hours. One of the only hour thing I tell people about is autophagy occurs best. The liver functions best. The brain functions best in the presence of 5 hours minimum between daytime energy intake and 13 hours overnight energy intake. So you do want to go for at least those time frames, but you don't want to set a time frame generally. That's your target, but you don't ever want to ignore body signals. If you are starting out trying to learn body signals and you get hungry, you have stomach growling hunger at only 3.5 hours, then it's time to eat. Even if you didn't get to the 5 hours that we want, you'll get there. Give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, and learn to eat healthier. Eat more protein, eat more healthy fat like butter, and you will get to the 5 and 13 at some point. Usually it just takes 4 to 6 weeks and you're well on your way. But not everybody can just suddenly be at 5 and 13 hours. But that's only 18 hours of the day, so you have lots of other hours you can still play with. But that's why I don't recommend a set hour schedule for fasting. Okay? Fasting does not stress adrenals unless adrenals are already stressed. So you just have to make sure that you are taking care of all the things that contribute to adrenal stress. If you aren't sleeping well, then you need to make sure you're sleeping well. If your iron is low, you need to address your iron. Okay? There are a lot of things that stress adrenals, but fasting is actually beneficial for adrenal glands. What curbs a sweet tooth? Getting rid of them. The more carbs you consume, the more sweet tooth you have. So you just have to get rid of them. Once they're gone, the sweet tooth cravings begin to subside. Salt can help. Pickle juice can help, but nothing really is going to make the sweet tooth go away until you completely get rid of them. Yeah. All right. I hope that helps understand how the body works. Chewing helps dictate leptin and ghrelin function. So don't drink your calories. We don't recommend protein shakes ever for normally healthy people. Protein shakes are very poor nutrition sources in general. So you want to avoid those as a general rule. If you are in a special category and have been told by me or your provider that you might need a protein shake, that's different. There's probably a reason for that, but to just choose to use a protein shake, there's not a reason to do that, and it's not beneficial for you as a general rule. So use meat, use butter, use ghee, use clarified butter. Those are your best fats because of the vitamin A in the butter. The vitamin A in the butter helps you absorb the protein in the meat. You want butter on every single plate you put on the table every day. No matter if it's for you or your kids or your spouses, whoever you're feeding, you want to make sure there's butter on every plate because it's really beneficial for everybody in your family. Okay? I'm Jenny Gallagher. Thanks for joining me. This is Joyful Heart Healthcare and Keto Nurses. I will see y'all in a week or two. Bye, y'all.